Hi folks, so let's talk about the full new moon in Virgo that's going to occur 24 hours from now. I was going to do a video on Venus going direct because Venus is the one planet that is making aspects that are relevant to this new moon, that are encoded into this new moon over the next month. 28 days after this new moon. So for a lot of people, Virgo season is about the sun going through Virgo from about August 21st to 23rd to September 21st to 23rd. So indeed, conventionally speaking, we're about to enter Libra season fairly soon, around September 21st, 22nd, 23rd, or thereabouts. For me, Virgo season is just getting started with this new moon between now and the October 14th eclipse. This is when the new moon occurs in Virgo. We've had Mars go through Virgo relatively recently. We've had Mercury almost wake its way through Virgo, but going retrograde on August 23rd, getting ready to go direct on September 14th, a day after the new moon. More on that in a second. We have Venus getting ready to enter Virgo in October, and the planets from Virgo oppose Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, but also trine Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. And these retrogrades we've had recently, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, still technically currently, both have a great deal of relevance with the eclipse cycle that we're in right now, whether it is the fact that the North Node has moved into the sign of Aries, and we had the Aries North Node eclipse on April 19th, but then we have the corresponding lunar eclipse on October 28th of this year in the sign of Taurus, where Jupiter and Uranus are transiting, and both Venus in Leo, Venus having been retrograde in Leo, now direct, Venus is going to be squaring Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus for the third and final time, and trining Chiron in Aries, where the North Node is now, and we had the first of the Aries eclipses on April 19th of this year. And of course, the planets Mars, the Sun, of course, the new moon, Mercury, and then finally Venus are going to, well, the new moon is going to oppose Neptune tomorrow, but the rest of the planets oppose both Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, but also trine support Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. Now, this is a very quick summary. You can look at my last 3, 4, 5 videos, and I've gone through a lot of this stuff as far as the retrogrades are concerned in a fair amount of detail. Let's just take a look at this particular new moon. Coming into the new moon, I would imagine the last 24 hours especially, but 24 to 48 hours, but also the next 24 hours, indeed the next 48 hours, indeed until the weekend is over, even though we have the new moon tomorrow. And I am sure many of us are feeling this already. There's likely to be confusion, things not working quite so correctly, Mercury retrograde things, technology being slower than usual, simple things being complicated. It's not the most comfortable of times, partly because the moon is waning into nothing, is just before the new moon, and our energy is low. We're depleted. We could still have been busy, but the moon, as I've mentioned to you before a new moon, it's not unusual emotionally for us to feel depleted and a little bit hopeless and a little bit depressed and easily frustrated. And we don't have our emotional reserves anymore. The wave from the last new moon in Leo has pulled all the way back, and we're tired, and we're waiting for this new moon in Virgo in 24 hours from now at this point in time to start to give us this energy again, for the wave to start to move forward. For people who like to intend or affirm after a new moon, it's up to you based on what your experience is. Some people like to set intentions soon after a new moon. Some people like to wait until the crescent is visible, just about visible, so that there's energy that's gathered. Up to you. With this particular new moon, there's also something to consider, whether it's worth it to wait till about the 16th, well, till about the 17th or 18th. Again, that puts us just into the weekend, into Sunday or Monday, I would imagine, because is it better to wait till Mercury being a little bit direct as well? This is a personal preference. I'm not going to give you any advice around this. I think if you want to cut a happy medium and wait till you first see the sliver of the crescent, that could be a great time to intend. The new moon is happening in the latter decan, the last decan, in the latter part of Virgo. So after the new moon forms, by the time a lot of people are functioning, the moon will have moved into Libra. So that's, neither here nor there. The intending, you can do the intending whenever it is that you want to do. Let's get to the meat of this reading. Let's get to the new moon itself in Virgo. So coming into the new moon, the next 24 hours, the last, you may have to give yourself, if there's stuff that needs to be gotten done, you may just have to give yourself just that much more of a push. You may need to find yourself being really patient, energy depletion, hopelessness. Just wait for the new moon. It's amazing to me right after the new moon how the energy just starts to flow back in and how the wave starts to make its way to the shore again. And of course it crashes to the shore, as I like to use that analogy, at the time of the full moon in Aries at the end of this month. This month being September. Does that sound right? Yes, it does sound right. I'm not crazy. But also we've got Mercury coming to a standstill just before it goes direct. On the 14th, for me, Pacific Coast time or East Coast time in the United States, Thursday evening, the new moon in Virgo happens. Friday, Mercury goes direct. And a stationary Mercury, we often say that Mercury retrograde shenanigans insofar as miscommunications and delays and crossed wires and technology breaking down and travel snafus and lost baggage and misreading airline tickets and even leaving time to get to meeting but still finding traffic making things late, and just things just feeling like just takes things not working or being slower or just all that kind of stuff. The stuff we attribute to Mercury retrograde and we experience. We find it peaks when Mercury starts to go retrograde, starts to go direct as it is now, and when a retrograde Mercury conjuncts the Sun, which is now behind us, which is now past us. So Mercury is getting ready to go direct, which means that some of these snafus may intensify. In addition, depending on what this Mercury retrograde period has meant to you and what it's been about to you, you might get a certain amount of closure or answers or clarity around a particular situation. I'm going to talk more about Mercury going direct in not the next video. The next video I want to keep it about Venus going direct, and then after that I'll do one on Mercury going direct, because it's fine when I do it, it will be relevant. It's not really that relevant to the new moon necessarily, and so let me just bring this back to the new moon. But Mercury going direct, just let me finish that thought. Whatever this Mercury retrograde period has meant to you, there is a kind of closure as Mercury starts to go direct. And the closure is sort of a dotting the I, crossing the T, giving you some awareness, some resolution of those antics, those bigger picture antics that the Mercury retrograde brought up for you, the kind of intuitive knowing it brought up for you. And let's just say more on that later. Let's just shelve that for the Mercury going direct recording. The relevant thing for us with regard to this new moon with the Mercury retrograde, again, Mercury going direct, is that the new moon occurs at an awkward and an agitated time because things are not flowing smoothly, partly because the moon is shrunk into nothing and getting ready for the new moon, and our emotional reserves are depleted, and it is the last few days of the month and we want to release it. We may want to rest, sleep, find our energy again over the next 24 hours, and once the new moon occurs, the wind starts to get behind our sails again. And with Mercury going direct, it may be that as we head into the weekend and slightly beyond, that technology-wise and otherwise, there are snafus, adjustments, surprises that have to be handled and managed, that require patience, where things just don't flow quite as smoothly as they should. This element of surprises is very relevant because the new moon trines Uranus, and I'll come to that in a second. At the end of the day, it's an energetic thing that affects the days around the new moon. And of course, it also gets encoded into the new moon for the next month. So as we've discussed before, and here's where we get into the heart of the new moon, both the Leo new moon a month ago and this Virgo new moon have a lot of, in and of themselves, a lot of forward momentum. They're very action oriented. The Leo new moon trined the North Node, where we're meant to develop, where our sense of calling is right now, where our development is. And this Virgo new moon trines Uranus in Taurus. Uranus in Taurus has been trying to make us more authentic, more liberated. Authentic is really the right word. More independent, more us, more authentically us in the sign of Taurus. So where does Taurus sit in your chart? What does that house stand for? And because Jupiter is also in Taurus, there's a theme of new beginnings, ending a 12-year cycle, starting a 12-year cycle. We're also heading towards the eclipse on October 28th, and the week before and after August 28th, not that long ago, had a kind of resonance. A lot that is related to the Pisces full moon and the time of the Pisces full moon also has a kind of resonance to the I think, I can tell even as I'm doing this video that there's this kind of Mercury stationary, and I'm not the only one. As I look at other people and look at the videos that I look to do, etc. The Mercury retrograde always does a number on us when it comes to our own fluency and how we're organizing our information in our minds and how we're connecting to it and sharing it. Bottom line is this: new moon occurs in Virgo. It opposes Neptune in Pisces. Neptune and Pisces being a focal point for the crisis that has been brewing, the loss that has been brewing in the sign of Pisces. Where does Pisces sit in your chart? What house does it occupy? What does that stand for? That goes back to 2013, 14, 15, 16. Could go back a little bit, but goes back that far. We've had a number of aspects, transits, that have been, as I said, Mars, the Sun, Mercury, have all opposed Saturn recently in Pisces, encouraging us from the sign of Virgo to come up with a plan of action to do with growing the Virgo part of our chart, developing the Virgo part of our chart, leaning into the Virgo part of the chart, so that, and this is where it's important, so that the Taurus part of our chart gets the relevant partnership and support in conjunction with the Capricorn part of our chart. Pluto is in Capricorn. For a lot of astrologers, this North Node forms a trine between the new moon in Virgo, Pluto in Capricorn, and Uranus in Taurus. For me, the trine to Pluto in Capricorn is weak, but we will leave that alone. The bottom line is going back to so much of the expansiveness of 2023 does involve the sign of Capricorn, because for me, it began with the transits in Capricorn and Mercury retrograde in Capricorn that take us back to November, December of 2022, when we had sort of the first push, the first set of opportunities that defined what 2023 would look like, that started to open the gate. That was the first phase of this. And so, sure, the new moon in Virgo builds on the oppositions of the planets that have recently transited Virgo and opposed Saturn, and have opposed Neptune and are continuing to plan towards opposing Neptune. Remember that a direct Mercury is going to oppose Neptune finally. It all was going to, but then was prevented from doing so because it went retrograde. And Venus will also oppose Neptune. When it comes to the oppositions in the sign of Pisces, a plan of action to confront and manage those crises, whether it is by taking responsible action to put out the fires or manage the crisis in the sign of Pisces that goes back to 2014, 15, 16, whether it is to confront and figure out how it is that you're going to confront the sense of loss or deceit for some people, or gaslighting, you know, or thievery, or smoke and mirrors, the loss that Neptune creates, and the awareness of loss, the awareness that things that you might be attached to that need to be given up, either they're being given up willingly or being renounced because of a spiritual calling, or depending on where Pisces sits in your chart, it could be something that contributes to an artistic growth, inspiration. But more, for a lot of us, for a lot of people, it has to do with looking at the Pisces part of your chart going back to the crises 2013, 14, 15, 16. And finally, this year, next year, 2025, implementing, finally tackling these issues and these crises. And the new moon in Virgo, whatever it is that we're trying to build or grow in Virgo, and it may not be that we're trying to build or grow it, well, the full moon in Pisces that occurred 2 weeks ago, as I mentioned in my last couple of videos, sent us enough signals and clarity with regard to where it is that we're trying to go to expand, and what it is that we might need from the Virgo part of our chart to support that expansion, or the meeting of those responsibilities, or the meeting of... The full moon in Pisces 2 weeks ago may have made it clear to us with regard to what needs to be managed and handled in the Pisces part of the chart. And the new moon in Virgo may give us the energy, the impetus, the means, the events, the opportunities to rise up and meet those challenges and those requirements and those responsibilities. And they may also give us a certain amount of impetus to take some sort of action. The sign of Virgo, famously meticulous, famously action-oriented, with a lot of thought. Meticulous is the word. The Virgoic meticulousness, the asking of questions, the inquiry, the collection of data, the finding out of what's really going on, the definition of what the problem is, may really support and may really help manage some of the fogginess that Neptune has been creating in Pisces, and the crises in Pisces. What's really going on? What does this really mean? I just want to confirm this. Well, this is how I want to handle this. Well, let me just go back and take a look at what it is that I'm trying to do. And with a non Virgo, you know, it's so interesting. I always, whenever I meet someone with a sun in Virgo, often, you know, they come across as somewhat vague. I always used to say kind of, but a lot of that vagueness just seems to have to do with the fact that they're constantly, you know, figuring out and working out all sorts of other things, and don't ever seem to be completely present quite the way you expect them to be. But they're present in the ways that count to them, and they're thinking about managing whatever it is that they're trying to manage in their minds and in their heads, in the execution of their responsibilities. The new moon in Virgo gives us, finally, after the Mars transit through Virgo, with Mercury having been retrograde in Virgo, with Venus getting ready to come into Virgo, the new moon in Virgo gives us finally the ability to pursue actions and opportunities that will help us both put a plan of action in place, but also help us start to grow and manifest things in the sign of Virgo that can help meet responsibilities in the sign of Pisces that may have become very clear around the 30th of August, the full Pisces full moon, and may also, insofar as that there's the potential for any deception or loss, or those themes may give us a certain amount of energy and a sense of, what do I need to do to help manage this? What is my approach to this? And how is this approach different from the kind of either paralysis, you know, it's a little bit like when a crisis hits, it's like watching if the house is burning, some of it's just kind of watching what's happening before you sort of get into action. And what I like about this new moon in Virgo is that there is action written all over it. The other action that is so relevant that I touched on is supporting the sign of Taurus and the growth in the sign of Taurus and the final eclipse in Taurus on October the 28th, along with, let's put, all the earth signs having the gates open, and Pluto and Capricorn. And again, there's this conversation of growing and building and contributing to the last of the Taurus eclipses and the new beginning in Taurus that Jupiter is trying to create, and the authenticity in Taurus that Uranus has been trying to create and will continue to do so. And yeah, like the Leo new moon we had a month ago, for all intents and purposes, the Virgo new moon is a powerful and action-oriented new moon. Venus, now direct, makes us more attractive in the sign of Leo. And by attractive, I mean attracting opportunities and smoothing out relationship issues, even more than smoothing out relationship issues. I don't even know that whether smoothing out is the word, as much as we have gathered through the time that Venus went direct. We have gathered ourselves together, in a sense, and meditated on and reflected on our sense of self-worth and our financial responsibilities. And at this point in time, the best use of that Venus retrograde and Venus going direct is us having collected ourselves in such a way that as we move forward, we are clearer about, as I've mentioned in my last video, who's in the boat and who's not in the boat, and where it is that we want to invest and spend financially, and how we want to manage our finances with regard to where it is that we want to go. Issues related to self-worth, issues related to how we value ourselves, issues related to what we value, issues related to what we want to manifest, where our goals are, and how everything needs to be in alignment with those. And as far as relationship issues are concerned, now that Venus is direct, after everything that's happened, there's every likelihood of possibility that even with the relationships that you want to tune out, you might have the grace in you to kind of manage it in a swan-like way. No, I'm so sorry, I don't have time for that. Oh, I'm so sorry, can we do this another time? Or, how it is that you're going to tune out people and influences that are drains, and how is it that you're going to open yourself up to people or influences who will, who you feel that you want to spend time with and invest your time and your energy towards supporting, and where it is that you might feel or find a kind of mutual support or a support to yourself and your goals as well. Who's in the boat and who's not in the boat. And Venus now direct for the third time, the two transits that get encoded into this new moon is that it squares Jupiter in Taurus and trines Chiron in Aries. What do you need to do in a Venusian way in the Leo part of your chart? What actions do you need to take? How do you need to tap into your financial management, your investments, manage your expenditures, manage your relationships? Where do you need to build new relationships? Which relationships do you want to capitalize on and build on and contribute to, and have them contribute to you? And which relationships do you want to invest in? And which relationships do you want to tune out? How are they relevant to the Leo part of your chart? Opportunities may start to have already the houses that are ruled by Venus, the Taurus part of the chart, where Jupiter and Uranus are, the Libra part of the chart, where Mars now is, and the sign of Leo. All, since Venus went direct, will have started to see in the past week or so action and greater attractiveness. Things starting to move finally in that part of the chart, even though the movement is a little bit qualified because Mercury is still retrograde. But we've been looking for these gates to open. Venus going direct, Mercury going direct, the new moon in Virgo, and finally the new moon in Libra on October the 14th. So the new moon in Virgo, another forward-looking, action-oriented, dynamic, powerful new moon, giving us the means to avail of opportunities and to create opportunities and to execute, to take action in the sign of Virgo, to manage, to grow things in the sign of Virgo, so that the crises and responsibilities, and even perhaps recent responsibilities, shorter term responsibilities that may have become apparent at the time of the Pisces full moon 2 weeks ago, can be managed, but also the crises in Pisces and the source of the sense of loss and deception and smoke and mirrors and things being foggy or unclear. The new moon in Virgo may give you the impetus to start to ask some questions, gather some data, start to put some plans of action in place, to start to manage that as well. That sense of loss, that sense of crisis that goes back in the sign of Pisces 2013, 14, 15, 16, especially culminating in 2016, 14, 15, 16, increasing in intensity, 14, 15, 16. And the new moon in Pisces is the second of the gates after Venus going direct that we are waiting to have open so that the Taurus part of the chart can start to grow again and to start to culminate, move towards a culmination as we head towards the October 28th eclipse in Taurus and support the end of a 12-13 year cycle and start of a 12-13 year cycle with Jupiter and continue to make us more authentic. And find the connection and support the recent transit of the North Node into Aries and the Aries part of our chart. And this connection is going to become more and more visible and relevant as we head towards the Aries full moon 2 weeks from now. But the new moon in Virgo, managing the Pisces part of a chart and meeting the responsibilities there and managing the loss and the deceit, but also supporting the growth and the expansion in the part of the chart that is looking to bust out where it is that we're meant to be investing our energy, the Taurus part of the chart, the Aries part of the chart. So the new moon in Virgo activating sort of the dialogue in the earth signs to ultimately grow the Taurus part of the chart in such a way that the Virgo and the Capricorn part of the chart are appropriately impacted and affected. With the Virgo new moon, it has something to do with making the right choices and availing the right opportunities, and again, growing the Virgo part of the chart in such a way that it supports the Taurus part of our chart. At the same time, Venus going direct and Venus in Leo, and us encoding 2 transits from Venus in Leo now direct. What are we attracting? What are we managing? Where are we starting to see greater opportunities come into us? Luck, how are we managing our relationships? What do we now know? How much more self-possessed are we now that Venus is direct? Out of all the personal planet retrogrades, Venus retrograde is my favorite because it really, as painful as it can be, it really sorts the wheat from the chaff when it comes to relationships. And those patterns that we're in, where we are enmeshed in a certain kind of toxicity, there's no better transit than a Venus retrograde to kind of shake us out of it. So that once Venus goes direct, we really have a sense of this is where I'm going, this is who needs to be in the boat, this is who does not need to be in the boat, this is what I need to try and do with my money, and yes, I'm not always consistent, but let me paddle and start to glide like a swan, and the opportunities start to come in. Venus going direct is the first of the gates in terms of forward movement. So as I said, over the last week, you might start to have experienced some of that forward movement, but you could have been experiencing a certain amount of forward movement, as my last videos have said, even with the Leo new moon. This has been the irony. I don't know that irony is the right word. This has been the complication at this time. Both the Leo new moon and the Virgo new moon are saying, let's go, and providing opportunities to do so. But the fact that the Leo new moon happened while Venus was retrograde, the fact that Mercury went retrograde within that month, the fact that the Virgo new moon happens while Mercury is stationary, still kind of keeps pulling us and holding us in place in such a way that everything that we need to have in place to avail of those things that are moving forward are not quite here. The house is not built. I want to say we're not quite at our destination, but that's not entirely true, because the Leo new moon and the Virgo new moon may indeed be providing destinations to us, but we're not, it's not all there. We haven't, we may be in a new place or in new places, but we're not living our new life. And that new life, for whatever reason, we don't start living it till October 15th, till the Libra new moon. It's the most bizarre thing. Now, after the new moon, Mercury goes direct. That's the next gate we want to have open. So even though the next month till October the 14th has this shadow, this encoded Mercury stationary energy within it, it's part of the reason why I feel like this Virgo new moon is let's go, but at the same time there's a fly in the ointment that at the time of the Virgo new moon, the planet that rules Virgo and rules the chart of this new moon is stationary. And Mercury stationary is not let's go. Mercury stationary is hold. And there's still a certain amount of confusion, and there's still is 1 foot here and 1 foot here, and there will be forward movement and there will be opportunities and you will be asked to avail of them. It's a little bit like, you know what it's like? It's a little bit like interviewing for jobs, but not having the final answer and not having the clear go ahead in the gate and not starting. So the opportunities are there, the things are building, the seeds are being planted, you're showing up, but there's still a kind of a hole. And in the process of doing so, you might experience the odd technological breakdown and this and that, and well, I thought it was going to be this, but now it's that, and shall I do this? And well, but that looks good. And you know, it's still not so as I said, it's not even, for some people, it may even be that there's been greater forward movement in a certain sense, where opportunities have actually come up, contracts have actually been signed, even if they've been signed while Mercury is retrograde, or whatever it is that's gone on for people. Both the Leo new moon and this Virgo new moon, with Venus now direct, will bring opportunities and may well bring decisions, may well bring what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. But there's something about the energy that does not clear, that is not an all systems go, that is not the rocket is ready for takeoff till October 14th. Because there's something about the next 28 days that still has a hold over it. Although energetically, after this weekend, after, let's just say after September 18th or so, once Mercury starts to move forward visibly, the energy starts to ease up. The energy starts to ease up. The energy starts to ease up. So over the next 28 days, they may very well be, the boat starts to move, but there's some reason why we're still tethered to something in the past. It's a little bit like the boat is starting to move, and either you feel like you've got 1 foot in the boat and 1 foot in the shore, and as you head towards the 14th of October, both feet are in the boat. Or another way to think about it is, for some reason the boat is still tethered. Things are still being put in the boat. There's still, that is the best way that I can describe this energy. Just like the Leo new moon 4 weeks ago, the lunation, the new moon itself, is, who doesn't want a Leo new moon? Who doesn't want a new moon trine the North Node? Who doesn't want a new moon trine Uranus? It's like, let's go. Here, let's move. And yet it's like, everything's not quite, the Venus retrograde and the Mercury retrograde are like, and the ruling planet of this new moon, Mercury being stationary at the time of the new moon, we're still figuring things out over the next 4 weeks. So the next 4 or 5 days will continue to have some of that Mercury going direct energy. The fact that Venus is direct and is going to be squaring Jupiter and trining Chiron, you have to ask the question in the Leo part of your chart, what opportunities are coming in? You have to take action, Venusian action in the Leo part of your chart to help Jupiter create the new beginning in the Taurus part of our chart. over the next 4 weeks, but especially over the next few days as Venus gets ready to square Jupiter. And whatever it is that you need to do in the Leo part of chart to support the healing that Chiron is trying to achieve in the Aries part of the chart where the eclipses are moving in. And if you know your chart, you'll be able to tell. And if you're heading towards the age of 50 and you're having your Chiron return, it's a big healing. For people who are having a Chiron return, Venus now finally trining Chiron for the third time from Leo, it's a real opportunity to create some major changes where you might almost be feeling like you're kind of born again, because the Chiron return is such a powerful transit, an important transit. Now that's only for people who are experiencing the Chiron return between the ages of 46 to 50, 51, thereabout, depending on where Chiron is. So clearly your natal Chiron would have been in Aries. So what needs to be healed in the Aries part of the chart, and that healing is currently in progress. But for anybody, the Venus, the third and final transit during this retrograde cycle to Chiron occurs a few days after the new moon, just as the square to Jupiter in Taurus occurs within a day or two of the new moon. And it's encoded into, and this is lovely, because who doesn't want to work with a direct Venus's energy? So when the sign of Leo, what is it that you need to do to avail of opportunities, to put yourself out there, to be attractive? And I'm going to leave that there for that word attractive to mean what it means to you. But I think you know that I'm not just talking about, in fact, the physical attractiveness is not the biggest part of that attractiveness that I'm referring to, although it's part of the attractiveness. If you are going to interviews, are you going to look like how are you going to put your best foot forward to meet and avail of the opportunities? And with the Venus direct, how are you going to manage your relationships and how are you going to manage your money? Now that you're out of a Venus retrograde and know where it is that you want to go and who's going to be in the boat with you and what it is that you need to do. Now, go easy on yourself, as I said, over the next 24 to 48 hours, especially the next 24 hours, because you may be feeling like, I got to do this. And Avi said, Venus, I need to do this with Venus. But you may just have so much energy. Sleep, rest, restore yourself where and when you can. And then after the new moon, you can dive into it. And after this weekend, especially, even more. I am willing to put money on it, that even though we've been in this last week of the Leo new moon, I am willing to put money on forward movement even since the time of the Leo new moon, and even over the last week after Venus has been direct, of opportunities starting to show up and just be like, all right, let's go. So the let's go energy starts to gather momentum after Mercury goes direct, after this weekend, after the 18th of September, we start to see more and more forward movement. It becomes easier and more relaxed to be able to sign contracts and to feel like we know what's going on, etc. But there's still something about the next month till October the 14th that has us dealing with past things before the rocket can really take off, before we're really there, before we're really talking about arrival, before we're really talking about, okay, whatever it is that has been trying to be built, and that's looking towards October the 14th and that particular eclipse. And that's an eclipse of release, so even more needs to be released at that point in time to create this new reality. Better to be here than in the middle of the retrogrades. I mean, at least Venus is direct and we can feel the opportunities start to come in, and the grace and the ease and the poise and the self-assurance with regard to what we're going to tolerate and what we're not going to tolerate. And that I'm referring more in terms of relationships and how we're going to manage that with a certain amount of ease and grace, and how the Venus retrograde period between July 23rd to September the 3rd, 4th helped us detoxify and finally get to a place where we feel like we can detach from or disentangle from associations that are murky or toxic or confusing, and in some cases determine, even if things are murky with regard to, it's a weird way of putting it. Who's a keeper and who's not? And in certain cases, some situations may just need to be placed on ice for now. It's not a relationship that needs to be discarded. In certain cases, there's kind of, until the real toxicity is dealt with and eradicated. So then you can actually see, okay, because when we're talking about toxicity in relationship, it affects other relationships around you as well, the sort of mutual contacts, etc. So you've got to then first deal with the main event or the primary issue, and then see what remains with the others as well. Irrespective, Venus direct. Transactionally, we're in the middle of figuring things out. Everything mentally is not clear yet. Mercury is stationary. On one level, it starts to get clear and things start to move in a certain direction. The gate opens even more after September 18th, technically after the 15th, but let's give Mercury a couple of days to kind of start to move forward. On a bigger level, the rocket doesn't take off till October 14th. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you found this useful. By all means, let's celebrate the fact that Venus is direct. Let's celebrate the fact that after this weekend, Mercury will be moving forward. Let's celebrate the fact that the gates are open. And yeah, somewhere a stationary Mercury is going to be casting its influence over the next 28 days. But my God, what a new moon. It's basically saying all these transits have happened through the sign. And, you know, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. At the time of the Aries full moon, Venus is going to be getting ready to square Uranus. At the time of the Taurus full moon, the eclipse on October 28th, Venus is going to be getting ready to trine Uranus. There's something about these retrogrades that is looking to that October 28th eclipse. There's something about the week before and after August 28th that we've just come through. There's something about all this movement and the backwards and the forwards and the forward pull of the Leo and the Virgo new moons and the retrogrades. There's something about this churn that is totally supportive of the October 28th eclipse in Taurus. You know, at the time that Mercury went retrograde, it was getting ready to conjunct Mars, and it finally conjuncts Mars in Scorpio, I think a day after the October 28th full moon and eclipse. Okay. Opportunities will start to come to you after this new moon related to the sign of Virgo as well. They've already started to come to you with related to the sign of Leo. It's time to take action related to the sign of Virgo. Where does Virgo sit in your chart? What house does it occupy? Avail of opportunities, take action, lean into it, go for it. Manage the crises and responsibilities in the Pisces part of the chart. See what comes and what you need to do to support the Taurus part of your chart. Understand that over the next 4 weeks, you're still going to be contending with a certain amount of back and forth confusion, and understand that the rocket really takes off after October the 14th. No matter what progress has been made, and for some people, genuine progress has been made since that Leo new moon a month ago. New things have shown up, but it's not, the rocket doesn't take off till October 14th. But now, after this new moon, we can ignore all that. All we can do as human beings is put one foot in front of the other and enjoy the fact that Mercury goes direct one day after the new moon, and enjoy the fact that it is going to be moving forward after the, in a way that really counts after the 17th, 18th. Enjoy the fact that the houses impacted by Mercury, ruled by Mercury, Virgo and Gemini. Virgo especially, where this new moon occurs, can finally start to listen. The Virgo part of your chart in this last week or so, heading to this new moon and Mercury being stationary, must feel pretty damn barren, must feel pretty bleak. But after this new moon and after Monday, it starts to move again. And we need that movement. We need the Venus being direct movement to look towards October 14th and October 28th. I'll leave it at this. Hope you found it useful. Feel free to share, let your friends know, support the channel, click on the subscribe button. If you click on the subscribe button, there's a bell icon next to it, and over that there's a wiggly bell. You can click on that and you'll know when I'm doing new videos. Thank you for supporting, thank you for commenting, liking, all that kind of stuff. Give circulation. Thank you so much for the people who have truly have made the effort to put comments and leave all that. I really do appreciate it. Email address is in the description, so if you're interested in getting a personal reading, you can inquire there and I can send you rates, etc. based on which country you live in. And I will leave it at that. All right, thank you. Take care.